Tonight, you're going to put your child to bed. You'll lay them down on soft sheets, close the door, and trust a small glowing monitor to tell you they're still breathing. For 99.9% of human history, that decision would have killed them before morning. No walls, no monitor, no pediatrician on call. Just the dark, and everything out there that could smell a newborn from a quarter-mile away. For 300,000 years, keeping a child alive was the most dangerous thing our species ever had to do. And the way they did it changes everything you think you know about being a parent. The problem starts before the baby is even born. A newborn horse stands within hours. A newborn chimpanzee grips its mother's fur from the very first minute of life. A human baby cannot hold up its own head. It cannot regulate its own temperature. It cannot find food, signal danger, or survive a single night without another person's body heat. It is, by every biological measure, the most unfinished creature on this planet. And the reason is one of the strangest trade-offs in the history of evolution. Scientists call it the Obstetric Dilemma, and it started the moment we stood up. 7 million years ago, our ancestors began walking upright. It was one of the greatest evolutionary leaps in history, but it came with a hidden cost. Walking upright required a narrower pelvis. A narrower pelvis meant a smaller birth canal. And at the same moment, our brains were growing larger than any primate that had ever lived. Something had to give. Evolution's solution was brutal in its simplicity. Give birth earlier. Human babies are born with only 25% of their adult brain size. We are the only primate born this unfinished. Neurologists sometimes call the first 3 months after birth the fourth trimester, because developmentally we are still in the womb. We didn't become helpless by accident. We became helpless because our brains demanded it. The price for the most powerful mind on earth was a child that could not survive alone. So, how did we survive? By doing something modern humans have almost completely forgotten how to do. We didn't do it alone. In 2009, anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy published a landmark study on what she called cooperative breeding. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, raise their young in isolation. A chimpanzee mother carries its infant alone, feeds it alone, protects it alone for years. Humans do something that no other great ape does. We share the child. Not as a nicety, not as a cultural preference, as a biological survival strategy that is written into our evolution. Hrdy's conclusion was stark. The energy required to grow a human brain is so enormous that no single mother could have provided it alone. We are not a species that tolerates help raising children. We are a species that requires it. The evidence of how this worked is staggering. Among the FA foragers of the Congo Basin, a newborn is held by an average of 14 different people in a single 8-hour period. 14! The mother holds her own child less than 40% of the time. The rest of the day, that baby is in the arms of aunts, older siblings, grandmothers, neighbors. Among the Aka people of Central Africa, fathers are within arm's reach of their infants 47% of the day. The baby was almost never alone, almost never on the ground, almost always touching another human body. Warmth was survival. Contact was survival. The tribe was not a social luxury, it was the incubator. But the village wasn't just warm hands and kind intentions. It was technology, ancient, sophisticated biological technology. When we became bipedal, something else was lost: our body hair. For millions of years before that, primate infants survived by gripping. Tiny fingers wrapped around fur, pressed against a mother's body, carried silently through danger. When the fur disappeared, the grip disappeared with it. So we invented something. Archaeologists have found evidence of woven baby carriers as far back as 10,000 years ago. Slings, wraps, fabric cradles. The oldest childcare technology ever discovered. But carrying a baby wasn't just transport. It was a biological trigger. If you have ever picked up a screaming child and watched them fall silent, you have witnessed a 300,000-year-old survival mechanism activate. Scientists call it the transport response. When a human infant is carried, its heart rate slows, its crying stops, its body goes limp. Not because it's comforted in the way we think of comfort, because its ancient brain has registered one signal: I am being carried to safety. A crying baby in the wild does not survive. It sends a signal into the dark, something small, helpless, and easy to kill. The transport response was not evolution being kind. It was evolution being ruthless. The babies that went silent when carried lived.
Feeding a human child in the ancient world required the village too. Without formula, without clean water, without any substitute, mothers breastfed for 3 to 4 years. This wasn't just nutrition. Extended breastfeeding suppresses ovulation. It acted as nature's birth control, spacing children far enough apart that the tribe could sustain them. When the child moved to solid food, there were no soft pouches of pureed fruit, no blenders, no jars. There was pre-mastication. Mothers and grandmothers would chew tough meat or roots until it was soft, then push it lip to lip into the child's mouth. This was not just feeding. It transferred digestive enzymes, shared immunity, passed antibodies that the infant could not yet produce itself. And here is the fact that will change how you see something you do every day. Multiple anthropologists have proposed that this act, mouth to mouth, a transfer of life, is one of the evolutionary origins of the human kiss. The most intimate gesture in human culture may have begun as a mother keeping her child alive. There is one more member of the village that kept us alive. One whose role was so critical that evolution itself was reshaped around her. The grandmother. In nature, almost every female animal dies when she stops reproducing. There is no evolutionary incentive to live past fertility. Your genes are finished. Your purpose biologically is complete. But human women are a profound exception. They live for decades after menopause. They remain among the most active, most capable members of their communities. And for a long time, no one could explain why. Then, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes went to Tanzania and watched grandmothers work. Among the Hadza people, Hawkes found something extraordinary. Postmenopausal women were the hardest working foragers in the group. Not the young mothers, not the hunters, the grandmothers. They dug for the deep tubers that children couldn't reach. They fed grandchildren when mothers were pregnant again. They bridged the gap between what a child needed and what a mother alone could give. The data was clear. Children with living grandmothers were better nourished. Children with living grandmothers survived at higher rates. And mothers with help from their own mothers could have the next child sooner. Menopause is not a biological failure. It is one of evolution's most sophisticated strategies. A woman stops competing for reproduction so she can pour everything she has into the survival of the generation that comes next. And here is the fact that should stop you completely. We are not the only species that evolved this way. In the cold waters off the coast of Washington in British Columbia, scientists have spent 40 years tracking killer whales. Female orcas, like human women, stop reproducing in their 30s and 40s. And like human women, they continue to live for decades afterward. In 2019, researchers at the University of York analyzed 38 years of data on 378 orca calves. Their finding: when a postmenopausal grandmother died, her grandcalves were 4.5 times more likely to die within 2 years. 4.5 times across two species separated by 60 million years of evolution. The same answer. The grandmother is not a feature of human culture.
She is a feature of survival itself. This is the part that should unsettle every modern parent. The nuclear family, 2 parents, their children, 4 walls, is approximately 70 years old. For 300,000 years before that, no human on Earth raised the child the way most people are raising children right now. There was no such thing as doing it alone, not because people were kinder then, not because life was simpler, because the biology of human children made it impossible. A child born to isolated parents in the ancient world was a child that did not survive. Tonight, somewhere in this city, there is a parent sitting alone at 3 in the morning, a baby screaming, a body running on nothing, a mind wondering what is wrong with them, why this is so hard, why they feel so completely, utterly alone. Nothing is wrong with them. They are simply trying to do alone what 300,000 years of human evolution never designed a single person to do. The exhaustion is not a character flaw. The loneliness is not weakness. They are the precise, inevitable result of removing a human being from the system that their biology was built around. You are not failing. You're just missing your tribe. You are here today because someone didn't leave. Because someone stayed up. Because someone fed a child that wasn't theirs. Because a grandmother dug roots in the cold so that one more generation could begin. For 300,000 years, not one human survived alone. Not one. Not one. Every single person who ever lived is proof that someone, somewhere, chose to help. You were never meant to do this alone.